You ready for this, man? You ready? You ready? What the heck is this picture, right? Look at this. This one, man. Look at all this stuff. Let's try and simplify it, right? Let's try and simplify it. You'd be surprised how quickly I got all this stuff together. That was probably the surprising part of it. Oh boy. Played some more Mario 64, right? Right. Went to, last video I talked about Masingo. I talked about, some of my other videos I've talked about Gears of War, right? I didn't even put Gears of War on this list. That's how complex this is. But, really complex. So, let's just get funny, because getting serious is pretty crazy. Your precious Tears of Kingdom. And I've liked what I've seen from Tears of Kingdom. I like it. But yeah. So if you notice, I've capitalized a lot of things, trying to make it easy to understand. You see the capitalization. It's kind of an easy thing to say. Now I made kind of a tutorial like how you could take two letters from X to make an X. Like you could take specifically, you could take two L's and make an X, right? And you can take two letters, flip them upside down. You have to mirror them, though. You mirror both the L's, and then you mirror the other L below, and then you've got your F. So those are some complicated things we just jump into because we're just trying to simplify this, okay? So goddess statue is obviously one of the things with Zelda. And we know the final battle. There's this final battle of Garium's form right before he faces Demise. And so many crazy things are happening. You're like on this platform up in the sky. You're surrounded by a ring. But the ring was pretty crazy. A lot of people were like noting, what's up with this ring barrier that he can just like out of flat air put, and he puts like these diamonds, and they have like three outer layers. Now, if you see, I have two diamonds drawn, right? One on the left is a confusing one because the one on the left is, I believe, the one on the left is like just an example of like all the shapes they'll do in video games. And if they want to make a different shape, they can do a different outer layer to something. And that's why I drew Garium's final form. I fan arted it, just his arm. And I showed the important part of the arm, because you see the outer layer, how they made it different from the triangles that are buried around him, how his arm is different from that, which is also, it's like art concepts and all kinds of things. But, and that's what you would think, oh, maybe it's just two different art things. That way it blends well in the game's graphics and all that. But they will add the right shape. So on the right is the right shape. Okay. So this correct shape is always been confusing because many different video games will use kind of a similar thing where they'll have, two objects like being big, about the same size, and then the one other object being tiny, to add a little bit of detail to it around it. It's also good drawing technique. There's all kinds of things to it. But we're not going to go into like a full breakdown until we understand a little bit more about it. Okay, so Pocket Monsters Pokemon, right? Okay. Now, I prefer the Pocket Monsters angle because it's pretty confusing. Pocket Monsters English is really good English. It's very good English compared to the English translation you have of Red and Blue. But I think Red and Blue is, in a way, like a simplified form, kind of a simplified to let you know what Pokemon is, kind of. So it's kind of like a it's like a watered down, and then you have green and you have green and red being the Pocket Monster editions, and uh, and we got three evolutions. Now, three is always going to be a crazy concept. I mean, we have a game called Ico. You know what I mean? We have a game called Ico. And why does three go with, like, because a confusing thing that I have said is like two letters that can make an X, right? Okay, so if I want to make something in front of your face, right? And I want to make it good, I want to make it a concept right in front of you, I want to kind of hide it, right? Okay, so there's all kinds of optical illusions we learn in art in all kinds of forms. So Ico's kind of like a blatant thing of a simple way of it, because you could take two letters. So you'll take two letters from Ico, okay, and then you'll take one letter. And that one letter will be different from the two letters, okay? So it's different from the two letters. And as you can see, like for this, I just use as an example, like how they would take the O and they would make the O different from the I and the C, okay? Now, we could go to the deep. This one I call the deep tier concept because we're going to go to a deep tier concept of this. Mole Mania and Mario 64 have a concept of run, and in Pokemon you always have the option to run away from a battle. But why do we do run? Because in Mole Mania and Mario you can get the R, you can get a lowercase r, right? Then you can get a U. We need the U, okay, so we're going to get a U, and then we got the N, because you can take an N and flip it upside down, right? So you take the N, flip it upside down, and then you've spelled the letter, you've spelled the full word run. And that's how very detailed you can get if you study any of this. So here's another one that's really hard to understand. Okay, so here's it's not too hard to understand, but it's B and P. P you can put backwards. You can make it into a 9, of course. You can flip it and turn it into a B, right? And the reason that's behind that is that you take something like Super Mario, just the super, and you take the P, and then you have all kinds of ways you can change it. And then you have that space that's in between it. Now, drawings commonly do have spaces in them too, and that's advanced things too. If you want to hide something, you can hide something in a background, have spacing, okay? But that's why I said that was kind of top tier, because that still needs a lot of work. And jumping back to something that's kind of funny, but just crazy, is Banjo 3 canceled? Because specifically when you say canceled, when you say like canceled, you could take the two L's from it and you could clockwise them. So you could take one L, right? Take the one L and take the other L, and you could have them mirror each other. So for canceled, and it's kind of a smart little hint that you can put in video games, like if you're not wanting to spend a lot of money, and then you can and then you have 3 also in there if you're trying to just make hints towards other games. So then you just call it Banjo 3, and of course the ending where they're like, "I'll see you in Banjo 3." That ending. Now, there was also a Game Boy Advance Banjo-Kazooie game that was very interesting. But okay, so Masingo, right? Masingo. Okay, so I guess Masingo was kind of like a third party decision because Game Freak and Pokemon was a whole concept of getting away from first party publishing, so Nintendo could also have third party markets be welcomed and all that. Like have third party different markets. And Pokemon just specifically, they added Masingo. And the way that they added Masingo was pretty good because, one, they could still take hints and ideas from first party. Like they could still collaborate together. So the first party game being Super Mario 64 and having Masingo. Now this is probably this is a really hard thing to find in Mario 64, but where you're gonna go to find this, okay? It's not too hard, but it's like it's hard to see, but it's not really hard to see. It's not really hard at all to see, but once you see it, you'll see it. So it's a lot of people's favorite level, the swimming level. I guess it's because like a lot of people like the swimming, this jolly bay where you swim underwater. You see a crazy creature. You there's just a lot of things about that level, but specifically the more frustrating part in the level. Okay, so that's why you have below. See, you have a picture that's clearly looking like a Masingo right where the Banjo 3 is. You see that picture where it's like just looking like Masingo. But then I have them 3 separated bricks. And because the road, when you click this button, it adds 3 blocks. And those 3 blocks are very significant because it's taking these 3 letters to, not letters, the roads, because they're roads that you're trying to get across. And the roads, 2 of the roads have to be the same size. And the reason they're the same size is so they have a connection, kind of like a maze, So they have a connection to that. And then at the end, they have a small one to confuse you, of course. And they use another block. Now, if you noticed what this means, right? They've used 3 blocks, just like Masingo's. Masingo's a ton of blocks, but like you can easily draw Masingo with 3 blocks. But if you take 3 blocks and you were to separate them and then you put tiny blocks in, you could put tiny blocks in between, which Masingo also has tiny blocks. I made a poorly drawn Masingo in this one because you know how much stuff you can cram into Masingo. They cram a lot of things into Masingo because Masingo is a glitch Pokemon. And they have a whole concept behind that. But it's so when you go underwater specifically, because you could fall in the water. If you fail the puzzle in Mario 64, you'll fall in the water. And when you go underwater, you can see you have to swim around because I don't think the camera's good enough to it can be possibly to get all 3 of them, but most of the time you'll be swimming under, and that's also a point. The point is to confuse you, like so you don't see that, so you only see 2 of the roads. But once you swim and you see all 3 of the roads, then it becomes clear. And they hid this one really good. They hid this very good because why people enjoyed the music and liked the swimming level. A lot of people, for the most part, were not too much fans of the swimming mechanic because it was kind of difficult at times, and it just really depended on who was playing and why they were playing the game, and and I like to go to the random topic right now too, because the Day of Reckoning one comes off as random, but it's not too random because you have Day, you have Day of Reckoning. Day of Reckoning is like a 3 combo, and Day of Reckoning, yes, they took a stage that was in the game, and I wanted to find Velocity. I really did. I wanted to find Velocity, but it was cut out of the game. It was cut content. The only content that the game could fit was Sunday Night Heat, but there might be a glitch to get the Velocity. That was another thing. And they have a funny commercial of John Cena saying "earn your way up to velocity" or something like something like that. Like I said, earn your way up to velocity. And the reason WWE Day of Reckoning is even like here too is because it was a very good developed game. It has a lot of crazy things in it too, and has customization. Just a lot of things that you wouldn't see in a wrestling game, like deep customization. Just a lot of things that when you think about future games, you think about Minecraft, right, or you think about Fortnite, or you think about any of these new customization games. Even if we were to go to something like Saints Row, Watch Dogs, so just all all kinds of things, WWE Day of Reckoning is a very good game. There's 2 games to it. That's how good it is. It had at least 2 of the games, and it was really pushing. It was really pushing itself. Now we got Bear, Bird, and Shaman, which I also consider kind of a top tier because Bear, Bird, Shaman. There's been so many things on the cut content of Banjo-Kazooie. I don't get too deep unless I really know what I'm talking about, like if I know. But okay, so this whole Banjo-Tooie thing, because I have up on this paper about Banjo-Tooie, of Banjo giving his little peace sign. And it's so crazy, man. Like Banjo and Kazooie, Kazooie being in the backpack. Both of them together is easily making the L that's mirrored. Like how I told you how an L can mirror different sides. It can be mirrored different sides. So even there is a possibility, we can't assume, but there is a possibility that when Banjo-Tooie came out, and then Banjo-Tooie was given hints at Banjo 3, that it was all just a big troll. And that's a very easy troll to do because, right before you even play the game, you have Banjo-Tooie. You can look at the game when you open the package, and then you can see the whole thing, the piece, Banjo's piece thing. So that's like a clever marketing, and it's all brain stuff. You got to see that this is all brain stuff, and the reason it's such brain stuff like this is because they work with many examples of just memorization, just all kinds of things, puzzles. A video game will even tell you about physics, brains, diagrams, depending on what this video game wants. We even have Xenoblade Chronicles X here. And I'll explain what this is because there's a lot of capital L's. See, here's The Walking Dead's another random one. The Walking Dead, but as you know, I've talked about The Walking Dead had their own video game series, so they had a lot of power with that. Legend of Zelda, right? Just Legend of Zelda in general, because that's they also use hyphens and they use like a column, and that's a good example of that is Conker's Bad Fur Day, because Conker's Bad Fur Day, as we know, Conker's 12 Days got canceled, but Conker's Bad Fur Day was the new idea, and what they did is they're like, okay, we're gonna have it say Conker, but then we're gonna have it's a Bad Fur Day. That way, you still have the 3 because you're wanting the 3, right, for the artwork and all kinds of stuff. So you still have the 3, and you can just put it there, and it's just like saying it's like another entry in Conker, kind of like how Legend of Zelda just says like a bunch of entries. It just will continuously say Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda, and Sonic the Hedgehog is a top tier one, but I decided to cram that in mainly because Miles Tails Prower, the whole name that they gave Tails. They've made a comic book series about Sonic the Hedgehog, so I couldn't leave that out. Of course, we got the Triforce because what? It's three pieces making another triangle, right? So, there's okay. So like, there's also the T. The T is an easy one because it's once again an L, but this time it's the L's combined rather than the mirroring each other. So that's why the Tears of Kingdom thing has that. Haven't gotten on to K letters yet, but we do have Kazooie, we have Kingdom. K letters are for when I figure something else out. Um, but the okay, so now you even take like Y, and Y is a really odd one too. Y, you take it upside down. You can make an H, but do you see like on top of that, you've basically made a whole entire, you know what I'm saying? You've made like an ostrich. You've made like all kinds of things. Whether you made an ostrich, you've made a, and then it goes back to, you know, in Pokemon, you can catch a bird Pokemon, and what is it? It's Dodo, and it's basically an ostrich with two heads. And you can catch that Pokemon, and you know that's why Y is a significant thing I also pay to because it's very small, but like it's not too small. It has enough purpose to do what it needs to do. So it's like, oh yeah. See, you see, I get the stuttering because my brain just gets like, whoa. It really does get whoa because Xenoblade Chronicles X. I've kind of dodged around that, but we're gonna get into that. So imagine, for the longest time, you knew Xenosaga was on PlayStation, and then it goes over to Nintendo, and then Nintendo says, "Well, let's not call it like another Xenoblade. Let's call it Xenoblade Chronicles X." There's a lot of cut content and a lot of research into this game. This game is woo. This game is crazy, dude. Xenoblade Chronicles X. I just checked it up recently, and rather than just going into like full depth of Tears of Kingdom, I found some things in Tears of Kingdom, but I have to wait until I find something that actually I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But I have found things in Tears of Kingdom, just the typical three-headed dragon that was shown in the trailer, and that just goes back to our three concept. That also goes back to letters, because believe it or not, like the three dragons' heads when they band down, they can show letters, they can show all kinds of things depending on what you're doing, how you fight it, There's a whole thing behind that. And, they've made this concept a long time ago. The dragon's been a concept a long, long time ago with Zelda, the original Zelda. So it's been a concept for a long time. That's a long time. It's almost like 30 years or something like that. 30 years. Trainer Green. See, Quest 64 even, I find Quest 64 a good challenge because I was like looking at Quest 64. I could have done the Q, but the Q was way too complex. So with Quest 64, I just did the U, of course, the E, right? Now the E, the E is just another stacker because you can take two L's and stack them and conjoin them together, and then you've made an E or you've made an M. The T is the same way. You can combine two sides of an L. You can take an L, and then you can take another L, and you can combine them together, and then you've made a T by like switching it upside down. So there you go. There's your T. Because they're always trying to make like a three concept. 64 does have a loophole where they could just have the name, and then they have 64 just to say it's a Nintendo 64 game. So that's another thing they can do. But like with Super Mario 64, they specifically wanted to add all three in there because adding all three, they could get the three, and you would say Super Mario 64. So Ico is another canceled game, man. And this is just complete brain power, dude. This is insane brain power because Ico, was PlayStation 1, and then it got re-put on the PS2. But like at that point, it was like you wanted to see what Ico was originally supposed to be, and Ico on the PlayStation 1 is very different, not too different, but very different in many ways from the final version that they ended up making on the PS2. And on the PS2, they were adding for a different market. Okay, so it was like a different market, and the PlayStation 1 version would have been interesting to see versus like the PS2 version. And see what I mean? They don't have to go by shapes. They don't have to go by letters, okay? They can even take a story of a game, change the story spaces, and make it have the same thing, even though like it will still be called Ico. Two completely different games, okay? And there's Trainer Green. Now, I always try to go complex because Trainer Green is another thing. Because Trainer Green is not its own video game, okay, right? But Trainer Green, as we know, was introduced in the manga, and then she was introduced in the Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu game. And this is recent games. You always got to pay attention to recent games just as much as you have to pay attention to an old game. And Trainer Green, I haven't really done a huge breakdown on this Trainer Green, but I enjoyed the battle enough that when I was like looking at the green, just calling it green, green is a very easy way to fit in 3 E's. If you want to throw in 3 E's with green, you can do that. And it's kind of like the G you can turn into an E, and it's because you could be like G, E, capital G and then lowercase e. So you can always have a 3E combo there. And as you know, it was a different mechanic from catching Mewtwo. And Mewtwo has some letters in there too. But the green concept and everything behind it, it almost makes you want to play the original Pokemon games to see if you can find a trainer battle with green, which is it's not too impossible to imagine that somewhere in the game it's there. Because the biggest problem is Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, all of them. Yeah, Pokemon Red, Blue, Green. You could even say Pokemon Yellow. They are very detailed games and have a ton of codes because of the graphics they're running. They can run a ton of codes, ton of glitches, just a bunch of different things. You could even argue Gold and Silver, but you're kind of going farther if you're going to argue with Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Mainly, you're just going to stay to Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow because that's when they introduced this Masingo thing. And they really kind of kept the Masingo thing, for the most part, exclusive to those versions because they wanted to make Gold and Silver be different. So, because that's what you want to do when you're making sequels and stuff and new Pokemon and whatever. Soul, because they also didn't want the critics too saying, well, this game's glitchy like that game, and they didn't want to have like the glitches. That was another thing. There's all kinds of things like when they were selling their products. And but personally, as gamers, true gamers, I'll be honest, and like even like if you're not a gamer, sometimes a glitch can be very fun. So I don't. The review thing is very funny. It's just very funny. Sometimes I feel like if a game has less glitches, it can kind of ruin the experience of the game. There's see, look at all that stuff we went around. Dang, dude. Shin Megami Tensei. We only got like a minute on that, but you can already get it. Shin Megami Tensei. Soul Hackers has a hyphen too, and Soul Hackers was on the Sega Saturn. So yeah, good luck with that one. That one we could go way too far into. That I already know how far length that can go, but yeah, this about wraps it up, man. Enemy Zero also. Hopefully, I can cram this in a few seconds. Enemy Zero, the 3 E's, and Enemy Zero. So 2 Sega Saturn games, not just one. 2 Sega Saturn games. Yep.